Hey guys, welcome back to building a basic website from scratch. My name is Carlos Cucalon, and last video we talked about the footer of our site. We created a very simple footer, and then in this video we're going to talk a little bit more about branding, the colors that we're going to use or that we have been using. We're going to kind of put it all together and creating buttons as well. Now, one thing that I neglected to mention last time was about the responsiveness of the footer. If you notice, for example, this is our footer when it's full width on the screen, but as we make it smaller, you'll notice that as soon as the footer stops fitting inside of it, then it starts moving to the next kind of point break. Here you can see that right there. However, I personally would like for us to take a little more control in regards of the different breakpoints. So what we can do is we can go ahead and add some extra classes for our footer so that it can kind of have a more direct break between the different breakpoints. So I know that we have, if we go to the footer of our site, we did this call MD6. Let's go ahead and just do call extra small 12. So the moment that column D6 no longer fits that section, then it's going to jump into the next breakpoint, which is going to be the column extra small 12, which then at that point it will make the content full width. If we refresh the site, here we make it smaller. All right. Then we can kind of see a little bit more, and then when it breaks there, it automatically goes to full width rather than contact information being next to this. One thing that I also think would be a good idea would be to, once we reach this, to create a little more separation between one content area to the next content area. I feel that they're a little bit close to each other. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at the styles. We're going to look at the breakpoint for extra small. So Control F, extra small. Of course, we're going to go through this. All right. So now extra small. Okay, that would be, well, we need the medium, sorry. MD. So the min width for medium is this one right here, right? So let's go ahead and copy this, and we're going to use something, we're thinking about it backwards in this case, which if we go all the way to the footer area, very good. We're going to create that separation by adding more margin into our main footer header 3. So we're going to do this, but instead of min width, we're going to do max width of 767. Okay, the reason why that works is because we're actually using the breakpoint before it and saying when the max width is this, then this is what we want to happen. So for example, main footer H3 margin top to REM, right? And then so here you can see what this is saying is on the media, or this, which is going to be our screen, as long as it's inside of our screen and has a max width of 767 pixels, this is going to be the margin to REM is going to be that value for that H3 on the footer, main footer. Once it switches over to 768, which at that point the MD, the call-MD styles take over, then at that point, then this margin will no longer affect that content. So take a look at this. We refresh this. See, it created a little bit more space in here. You see that? But as soon as we go over here, make it big enough where the call MD starts taking place, notice what happens. See that? And we could even make it a little bit bigger if we wanted to, right? So that these breakpoints take a little bit, happen a little bit earlier on. But I like the way that it looks. I think it looks good. We might be able to even add a little more space on the top section right here. See, we added this margin top for the main footer. Let's go ahead and remove that from there. And let's go ahead and add that margin top on the actual footer. Margin top. Let's do 5 REM. And when we refresh, see it has a little more space. I think that looks a little bit better both on mobile, tablet, and desktop. So now we have this footer. I think that looks a little bit better. So that's all I really wanted to kind of touch base on that portion. Now, we worked on typography a lot in the beginning of this series. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about styles. So let's go ahead and create a new section in our content area down here. We no longer need the footer because the footer is complete, in my opinion. We have this div container. Very good. Let's take a look at this. I want to make sure that we have the right container. Okay, so container, row. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and do something else. This is our top container is going to be for our typography. Let's go ahead and create a new container just for our branding style. So div class container. If you remember the difference between container fluid and container, that is that container fluid spans the full width of the browser. Container just stays in the middle, so it kind of boxes the content inside of it. So again, we're going to do a class of row, and then we're going to do a div class of call md12, which I think is the same thing that I used everywhere up here. Let's take a look at this. Call extra small 12. Okay, perfect. Let's go down here. Okay, call extra small 12. And I no longer need to search, so we're getting rid of that right now. All right, so here, let's go ahead and add two where we're gonna, and heading to and call it branding. All right. And then here we're going to create a component. This is going to be a very simple component, and it's going to be div class of branding styles, branding dash styles. Okay, and each one of them is going to have a div with a class of item. And inside of that, we're going to have we're going to do here, we can do div class item. Let's go ahead and do the following. We're going to do a span, which is an empty element. Okay. And then underneath it, we're going to add a paragraph, and we're just going to type in the codes for the different colors. F4000, which that's kind of like our dark orange that we've been using on the site. And then here we're going to add just inline styles for this section, background color. And then we're going to add that style right there. The reason why I'm adding inline styles in this case is because this would only happen once. It doesn't necessarily have to happen everywhere else. And it'll be easier if we just control this one area here. It doesn't have to be reused over and over again. This is more for our reference. And we're using about 3, 6, maybe 8 colors here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's say the first color is that dark orange, and then we kind of go down the line as we're making these other styles, and you'll see what's going to happen here. Again, I'm just kind of copying these colors over. I have them jotted down from the site itself. If you want to create your own color palette, feel free to do that as well. So let me go ahead and do that. So this is going to be our black right here. Let's go ahead and use our next color, which we use in some of the heading areas. Then we have kind of these darker, these other lighter grays that we have that we use in there. For example, this one is going to be our text color. And here, for example, I can say something like text, right? I can do dark gray here, for example, as a description, black when I feel that it's black, H1, again, H2, H3, and here we can say something like, for example, maybe our H2 is going to be our primary color. Primary color, and our H3 is going to be our secondary color. Okay. Then here we're going to do something like that, this EF, 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 which is going to be our light gray that we use to highlight some areas inside of our tables. So that's what we're going to do is here, light gray, for example. Right there. And then, of course, we're going to do FFF, FFF, which is going to be our white. And because we are using this on the side as well. So now if we save this, go back to the browser and refresh, we kind of have each one of our styles here. But notice something, we added these span styles, right? And then here we just added the background color, but nothing is reflecting here. So pay attention, and we're going to make that happen right now using Flexbox. So this one is called branding styles. Let's go to our style and add these here. So here we go. Branding styles. End of branding styles. And of course we have this branding styles and tab here, or class here. Then we have item, and then we have span, right? So item, and then here item span. Okay, so our branding styles, we're not gonna add anything there. Let's go straight into the span. Let's go ahead and make it a display block with an overflow of hidden, which is very similar to what we did on the logo background image. Think about what we did there. We're going to do something very similar here. Then we're going to do something like a width of 100%, and then a height of, let's do a padding bottom on 100% as well. These are going to be huge, so be ready. There we go. All right, so we have these right here. Let's go ahead and inspect these. We have these items, this span, okay. All right, now I did a typo. So if we go to template, we should remove the word styles and just the words, it should be style without the S in there. See, this is how much I use. I actually use inline styles that I don't even remember that portion right there as well as I should. But again, it's not something that I would recommend using often, but sometimes it's useful, especially if you're trying to do something like what we're trying to do, which is just simple kind of layout, and is going to be kind of more for us internally rather than for everybody to consume and reuse. If we were to be doing something like, for example, variable styles, which are still not something widely accepted in all browsers, then at that point, yes, I would do something more standardized, because I'll be able to reuse that code. But here in this case, we're not going to do that yet. So now that we've done that, we have these huge squares here, as you can see. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the following. Let's go ahead and start adding some styles to these items here. All right, so branding styles is going to be our parent. Display flex. flex flow, row wrap, align items, flex start, align content, flex start, justify content space evenly. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add these style side for the items. So let's go ahead and do a flex. We don't want it to grow, we don't want them to shrink, and we want them to have an average of like 20%. Okay, for the size, and max width 20%, of course. And if we refresh, now that's looking a little more like they should. All right, so let's see, 20%. We can do 25%. Let's do the following. Let's change to space evenly, to flex start. And let's go ahead and do a margin right of 5%. Margin right, if I can spell it. Okay, 5%. Go back to the browser. Okay, that is looking a little bit more like it should. Now we have all of our colors in here. See that? And then we're going to add on our span, or let's actually make it the whole thing. I think that'll be cool looking. Let's add this gray around there. So let's do a border, 1 pixel solid, and then this gray right there. Save it, refresh. Okay, that's looking a little bit more like a like an actual palette. Okay, we can do that. And then we can do something like text align. Center, font size 0.8 rem, because it can be as small as it can possibly be. All right, now we have that, and then each one of our items should also have a margin bottom of 1 rem. There you go. So we have that. All right. So now we have that, and again, we have our styles there put in place. We have our branding, have our dark orange, our secondary orange. We have our light orange as well, black, gray, our text color that we're using there, 3333, our light gray, that we might use it to kind of highlight some spaces. And then we are good. We are on the run in this one. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to copy one of our tables up here, because we're going to add styles to our buttons. So let's look for one that doesn't have too much complicated stuff. All right, this one looks like it's the winner. Okay. Branding. Okay. So now let's go ahead and go down here, paste that there. And just like what we did last time, we're going to say information. So like this table is a reference for the button styles we are planning on using for our site. This is going to be table 2.1 because now we're moving somewhere else. Main buttons, perfect. Okay, yeah, main buttons. And then we have the markup, and then we have the example. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get rid of all of these other ones here. And I just left one cell, one row, or 2 cells, 1 row. There you go, main buttons, markup, and example. And our markup for our buttons is going to be very, very simple, at least in my opinion. So we're going to have an anchor tag associated to it. And then we're going to have a class of button. Refresh that. And that's it. That's all our code that we're going to use for our button. Again, this is going to be our main primary button, our basic button. However, we are going to add more styles associated too. So let's go ahead and say basic button. And here we can say basic button. All right, we can do that. Let's take a look at here. Let's see how I did it on the other ones. Yeah, no, I didn't add that in there. So let's go ahead and get rid of it. Basic button. And of course, here we also need an href with some sort of value, right? Because our buttons should be taking us somewhere. These are what we usually call call to actions, or CTAs. That's what we call them in the business. So ideally, you want to refer to them as CTAs, call to actions. Anytime that you have a button that's kind of stylized, like the ones that we're going to do, they're supposed to kind of help your users be attracted to that button so they can see it and be able to click on it. So again, very important that you know that term and that you understand why we're creating this as well. So let's go ahead and add some styles to this basic button here. Let's go to our styles and right underneath branding styles, right here, let's go ahead and add button styles. End of button styles. And then here we're just going to do a class of BTN. In a class of BTN, we're going to give it a display of inline block, which by now you should know what that does. Overflow hidden. We're also going to add some padding like 0.375 REM and 0.75 REM to kind of give it a little bit more spacing between those two, between the button and the border that is going to be created. So in this case, we're just going to use this light gray as an example for the background color. So background color is going to be that. And our main color for our button is going to be, say, that 222, 222. All right. And I think that's enough. If we refresh, let's take a look at this. I think it's because we're using these anchors over here. Background color. Oh, well, no duh. We have this gray color back here, so it's kind of hard to see. So let's go ahead and change this background color to something more like this 333. Let's flip these colors. So let's make this light gray, the actual text. And let's make this 222 be the color inside of it. So if we refresh, there we go. And then we have this color here. All right, so for our button, we have, these are links. So a link, right? So we have this right here. So we need to add this as well. Okay. Let me remember how to do this because I forget sometimes. I believe it's this way. Okay. Oh, why am I doing the word button? btn with link. Sorry guys, sometimes I stumble myself as well in regards of this, because if I'm not mistaken, that's how it should work. Let's do the following. btn active hover visited. There you go. All right, now we have that. Again, we needed to have those declarations because we're using the anchor tag as well. So that's why we're using that. And we also need to now text decoration. Let's go ahead and make it none because we don't want the underline to be on the button itself. But this button looks a little bit plain. So what we need to do here is after we have fixed this, we need to kind of give it a roll over for this button so that when a user hovers over it, not only the mouse tells them, but there's a visual cue as well. So in this case, we're going to do the ABTN hover as well as our VTN hover for this. The reason why we're using ABTN and BTN hover only is because what we're trying to do is if we were to use this in the future on, say, an actual button element, if we use the button element from a HTML, then this would also apply to that one as well, which we will use it in the future as we create our contact us form. So now here we're going to change that background color to be black, for example, just so that we can see it. So now if we save this right here, and then we go to the browser and refresh, then when you hover over it, then you should see kind of how that button style changes and that color changes, letting you know that you're hovering over that button. So this is going to be our basic button style. Now what we need to do is we're going to duplicate this, okay? Okay, and then we're going to do something like maybe tertiary as well. So then we're going to add extra classes here or class modifiers. So we're going to call this button primary. This other one is going to be secondary. And then tertiary. All right. And then we're going to change the labels as well. Primary, secondary, and then tertiary. All right. And now we go in and refresh and we should have all these different buttons. Now, why is this button? Okay, perfect. Good. So the reason why is I had deleted this BTN here. That's why it wasn't looking that way. So primary, secondary, tertiary. All right. So now let's go in. Let's take a look at this. So now we're going to use our primary button. We're going to use our primary color, which is going to be this orange here. Actually, this orange here. I don't want anything to be as close as this orange because this is our main H1, heading 1. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to add these classes now. Perfect. So we're going to go here. We're going to do .btn, .btn primary, background color, and then we're going to paste that color there. And then BTN primary hover, and we're going to figure out that background color. Let's go ahead and just do red for right now so that we can have a placeholder for it. If we refresh, again, we have the hover functioning, but we need to also add all the other styles for the BTN primary to effectively work. So let's go in here, copy these. Doing the rest it's going to be a little bit simpler. So now we're going to do this right here. We're adding all of these class modifiers here. Okay. And now we're going to repeat these. So let's go ahead and do, this is going to be secondary. No. Okay. And now we're also going to do that with the tertiary, but with the tertiary is going to be a little bit different. So we'll see, you'll see what's going to happen with the tertiary. Okay. If we go back to our list of colors, we're going to use this as our secondary color. We're still going to use the red. And our tertiary, we're actually going to use black. And you'll see what I mean by that. Give me just a moment. All right, so now we have all of these colors. Have our primary button, secondary button, tertiary button. And then here we're going to change also, for example, our primary color for our button is going to be white. Background, color equals to white or FFF. And we're going to do the same thing for the secondary as well, because this light gray doesn't really work. Now that looks a little bit better. So now let's take a look at this. So we have primary hover, secondary hover. Okay. So let's go ahead and fix these as well. We need to have an A in front of it as well. And then here, same thing. A in front of it as well. Okay, now we have these reds. So let's go ahead and do the following. What we're going to do is we're going to select this color right here. We're going to go to color.adobe.com. Here, we can actually paste our color here. And for example, we can pick different styles. So for example, we can do shades and we can pick the one that is maybe a little bit darker than it is. See, and we can go to our hover over in here, paste that in there. Paste that in there because that's our primary. And then let's go to the secondary and we'll do the same. See, we're gonna pick the same placement and see which one kind of works for you. When we refresh our page, then now we have our basic button, then we have our primary button, secondary color, secondary button. And again, these are supposed to call a little more attention than this because we're using our colors for the signs. Our tertiary button, we're going to do something a little bit different for our tertiary button. And this is going to kind of override a lot of the things that we've done. So here we're going to do the following. We're going to do background color, transparent. We're going to say our color is going to be black. And then we're going to say that if they do hover over, this is going to be our text decoration. Text decoration underline. And if we refresh, whenever this allows us to actually refresh, hopefully the internet didn't drop or something. Okay, now we have this here. What did we do? Oh, tertiary. go. Refresh. And when we hover over, we have this tertiary button. So again, we're still trying to make it look like a button. We could even do something like this, for example. Check this out. We can do border bottom, 2 pixels solid, and then we can do maybe black right here. We can even move this over, border bottom, 2 pixels solid, and then we can do the gray. Or instead of having to type in all of this, we can just do border bottom color. See? And to kind of keep things even, because if not, you'll see kind of these shifts a little bit. Okay, in order to keep it even, sometimes whenever I add border to one of the sides, I add it to the other side as well. So take a look at this, border, top, 2 pixels solid, but I'm going to say transparent. Just so that it can even out the button from top to bottom, okay? And then here on the bottom, because it doesn't quite show up, whenever you hover over it, let's go ahead and change that to that orange. So when you hover over it, okay, it kind of shows you that you're hovering over that button. So now we have these buttons that just by copying these, we can use them throughout our site. Now, what else can we do with this? And that is a very solid question. The next thing that we can do to improve on the buttons that we just created will be to maybe provide different sizes. So let's go ahead and do the following. Let's go ahead and copy our table. Okay. Perfect. Now this is going to be, this table is a reference for button styles for different button styles in regards of their size. Okay. These will be table 2.2 button sizes. Okay. And we're actually going to use this one right here. So we're going to do BTN small or SM. We can do that. Let's go ahead and just create 3 different sizes. I think that those will be good. One that is not going to have any sizes right here, right? And then we're going to do one that is going to be large. Okay. So you can see the difference between all of these. Basic, small button, basic button, basic large button. Okay. If we refresh our site, again, nothing has happened because we haven't added any styles to it. So let's go into this CSS. Let's go ahead and select our button. And let's go ahead and add a BTN small. And let's see if this actually happens. So font size, let's go say 0.8 REM. Okay. On our main button up here, let's go ahead and make sure that we also have a line height associated to it. Something like font size 1 REM, line height is going to be 1.5, 1.618 EM. Okay. Refresh this. All right. So there shouldn't have been a lot of change in here. Now we need to fix this button again. Because we're using all these anchor tags here. Let's go ahead and add those styles there as well. Copy this, a button link, a button active, a button small hover, and then a button small visited. Okay, perfect. And if we change that size, then this button should become smaller. Let's take a look at this. Okay, here's why that didn't happen, because I'm spelling out the word small, and I actually use SM as my button size. So now you can see that this button became a little bit smaller than this button. If we were to change, for example, the font size to 0.7, you can see how small that gets. And guess what? All we have to do is now add the same style, but for our large button. Here, we're going to do LG for large. And then here, let's make the font size relatively bigger, 1.618 REM. And now you have a relatively bigger basic large button. So this will be our large button, a smaller button, our regular button, and a smaller button. Again, if you're really trying to call attention, this will be the button that you might want to use. Again, we're kind of building all these different class modifiers. So what if we wanted this large button to have, for example, these primary button colors? All we have to do is go to the large button, right? And add the class modifier for primary, for example. When we go to the browser and we refresh, now you see that the colors automatically get adapted to that button. I'm keeping it very simple here just so that you know kind of what you have available to use, but that doesn't mean that you're not able to use all these other class modifiers and combine them to make a more effective look and feel for your site. Now, again, because we're using responsive units, like for as far as our sizing, our padding, our font sizes, all those things, as the browser resizes, right? We made some media query changes so that as the browser resizes, then you can actually, the font size will go bigger or smaller. So these buttons should adapt according to the size of the font for the website, and kind of work a little bit better in combination with everything else that is working with it. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop this video here. We've talked about the basic styles for our button. We've also added some primary, secondary buttons, tertiary buttons as well, our basic button as well. We kind of have a declaration of all of our fonts, all of our colors for our site. And now really after doing this, what we need to do is just start building our website. This is a lot of preparation, but you'll see how quickly we can actually build the rest of our site just with what we have already done. So until the next video, happy coding. See you then.